Girl, let me tell you about something that happened to me in corporate that probably happened to you too. A matter of fact, I'm almost certain it happened to you too. Because it wasn't just one specific moment, because it was never one moment. It was every moment, every single day. It was being told, you should smile more, when all you were doing was just thinking, when you were just doing your job, when you were trying to solve a problem that nobody else in the room could solve. It was being told that you sound upset when you were speaking normally, when your tone was professional, when you had done nothing wrong except exist in this room that wasn't even built for you anyway. And then watching some colleagues yell across conference rooms, show up late, turn in subpar work, be openly rude, and they get promoted. And this happened over and over and over again. And what do you do with that? You learn, you adapt, you survive, you make yourself smaller, you soften your voice, you add, I think, or just, or sorry to interrupt, to sentences that did not need any of those words anyway. You smile when you're not even happy. You stay quiet when you have the answer. You basically shrink. And here's the thing. When you finally left that building, that corporate environment, you took the shrinking with you without even realizing it. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Hey, beautiful. Welcome to the Launch Your Coaching Ministry podcast. I am Monique Addison-Stinson. And listen, here's the truth. Corporate may have given you a title, but God gave you a calling. If you're a Christian woman over 40 who's ready to stop tying your worth to your job and step into your God-given ministry, then this is your space. I show you how to package your corporate skills into kingdom work and get paid for it. Listen, my mom taught me something very powerful. If I don't bet on myself, who will? Now I help women just like you stop making excuses and start making moves, turning your experience into the coaching ministry God's been preparing you for this whole time. So, are you ready to launch? Let's go, sis. Now, after I left corporate, I thought I was free. I thought leaving the building meant leaving the behavior. I thought that once I was working for myself, answering to God and not to the corporate hierarchy, I would finally just be myself. And then I started working with ministry leaders because I was a burnout prevention coach for ministry leaders first. And I caught myself doing the exact same things, monitoring my tone before I said something direct, softening my feedback that actually needed to land harder for them in order for them to learn, and watching what I said and how I said it. Making sure I wasn't too much, making sure nobody felt challenged, making sure I stayed in a lane that felt safe. So I had left the building, the corporate building, but I didn't leave the conditioning. And sis, that is the thing about shrinking that nobody really talks about. It doesn't stay in the office. It follows you home. It follows you into your new business. It follows you in your content, in your messaging, your offers, your outreach. It shows up as vague messaging that doesn't sound anything specific enough. It shows up as avoiding your niche because choosing one person means disappointing somebody else. It shows up not reaching out to your ideal client because what if she says no? It shows up as building a whole business in a whisper when God told you to use your whole big woman voice. And I'm here to tell you today that season is over. We are done shrinking, starting now. So before we go any further, I want to give this a name because one of the most powerful things you can do for any behavior that is unconscious is name it. In workplace psychology, researchers call it shrinking, and it actually refers to the psychological and behavioral ways that women, and particularly women of color, minimize their presence, their voice, their achievements to fit into a workplace culture that wasn't even designed for them. It is actually a survival mechanism. And I want to be very clear about something before we go even further. You didn't shrink because you were weak, or you lacked confidence, or because something was wrong with you. You shrunk because it worked. It kept you employed. It kept you safe. It kept the retaliation at bay. It kept people from labeling you as difficult or aggressive or you being too much. In a system that punished you for being too visible and punished you for being too invisible, shrinking was the most rational response available to you at that time. The McKinsey 2025 Women in the Workplace report confirms what you already know. like it already lives inside of you. For every 100 men promoted to manager, only 60 Black women reach that same level. 60. And the broken rung, the failure to promote women to the first level of management at the same rate as men, that has persisted for 11 consecutive years. 11 years of data confirming what your body already knew. The system just wasn't built for you to take up space freely. So you adapted. You learned the rules, you played the game, and you survived. But surviving isn't the same as thriving. And the rules of that game are going to destroy your coaching business if you don't recognize them for what they are. Let me describe shrinking in detail because I want you to see if you see yourself in this. Not to shame you, but because you can't unlearn what you haven't named. The first form of shrinking is self-silencing. Now, this is withholding your ideas in meetings or keeping your opinions to yourself because you've learned that speaking up comes with a cost. You have the answer, you know the solution, but you've been burned enough times by watching your idea get ignored and then repeated by someone else 5 minutes later to the sound of applause. So you just stop offering it. Now, in your business, this looks like content that never actually says anything, posts that are inspirational but not specific, videos that talk around the thing instead of saying the thing, messaging that could apply to anybody, but because you've learned that being specific feels dangerous. The second form of shrinking is downplaying your success. Now, this is brushing your accomplishments under the carpet or attributing your wins to luck rather than skill. You've been conditioned to believe that owning your success makes you greedy or arrogant or even threatening. So you deflect. You say, oh, it was nothing, or I just got lucky, or the team really did all the work. Now, in your business, this looks like you not talking about your results, not sharing your client wins, not saying directly what you've done and what you can do for somebody else, whispering your offer instead of declaring it. The third form is code switching. This is adjusting your speech, your tone, your personality to mirror the dominant culture around you. Now, researchers call what happens when you do this long enough duck syndrome. Now, on the surface, you look calm and put together. Underneath, you're paddling frantically just to maintain the illusion of fitting in. The psychological cost of that performance over years and decades is enormous. Now, in your business, this looks like sounding like every other coach on the internet instead of sounding like yourself, softening your voice on camera, losing your big sis energy because somewhere you learned that being too direct makes people uncomfortable. The fourth form is accommodating others. So softening your language, adding the word just before your request, saying I think instead of I know, taking on tasks that are beneath your expertise because you want your colleagues to feel comfortable, shrinking your professional footprint so the people around you feel bigger. In your business, this looks like undercharging, doing free work that should be paid work, letting clients set the terms of the relationship instead of you setting them yourself, making your offer smaller than the transformation it actually delivers. So let me share some data with you that your body already knows, but at least we have some concrete data, right? So the McKinsey report tells us that senior level women are experiencing burnout at a rate of 60%, 60% compared to 50% of their male counterparts. And this isn't happening because women are less resilient. It's happening because constant self-monitoring, the kind required to maintain the performance of shrinking every single day, is exhausting in a way that accumulates over years into what researchers are calling low-grade workplace trauma. So you weren't imagining it. You weren't being sensitive. You were actually experiencing something real that had a measurable cost to your body, your mind, and your career. But that also confirms the double bind you lived every single day. Women are penalized for being too assertive. They are labeled aggressive, bossy, difficult, but they are also penalized for being not assertive enough. They are labeled passive, unambitious, not leadership material. There is no version of showing up that doesn't come with a penalty. So you learn to perform the version that kept you safest. And that version required you to make yourself smaller than you actually are. Now, for Black women specifically, there is a phenomenon researchers call pet to threat. It describes what happens when a Black woman who was initially supported as a moldable novice starts to demonstrate real expertise and authority. Now, 50% of professional alumni from the Management Leadership for Tomorrow reported that a white mentor or sponsor who initially supported them later undermined them once they became high-performing peers or competitors. So you weren't imagining that shift, sis, and you aren't crazy. Now, here's a part of the conversation that I haven't heard anyone else say this in the faith and coaching, business coaching space. The same system that taught you to shrink in corporate is actually still running in your coaching business. And it is costing you clients and income and impact. When you refuse to choose a specific niche because you don't want to leave anyone out, that's actually shrinking. You've learned that taking up a specific lane and claiming a specific expertise and declaring yourself the person for a specific woman feels dangerous. So you stay vague and you stay small. You make your message just quiet enough that nobody can object to it. When you avoid reaching out directly to your ideal client because you don't want to seem pushy or salesy, that is shrinking. You've learned that being too visible, too forward, too direct comes with consequences. So you post and hope, you create and wait, you whisper your offer, and you do all of that instead of just walking up to the woman who needs it and saying, I can help you. When you underprice your coaching because you're not sure anyone will pay what you are actually worth, that is shrinking. You've learned that claiming your full value makes people unforgettable. That corporate office is gone, but the conditioning stayed. And I know this because I did it. I left corporate, I built my own business, and I was monitoring my tone with ministry leaders, still making myself smaller in a room I had built myself, still following rules from a system I had already left. The shrinking doesn't stop when you walk out the door. It stops when you decide it stops. Esther didn't shrink. She walked into the king's court uninvited, knowing it could cost her life. And she said, if I perish, I perish. That wasn't reckless. That was actually the recognition that her voice was her assignment, and staying silent was not an option she could afford. Deborah didn't shrink. She sat under a palm tree and judged Israel. And when Barak wouldn't go to battle without her, she didn't apologize for her authority. She went because the assignment required her presence. The woman with the issue of blood pressed through the crowd that was not designed to include her, reached out and touched the hem of Jesus' garment and was healed. She didn't wait for permission. She pressed through. Every woman God has used had to make a decision to stop shrinking in a system that was not built for her and show up fully for her assignment she was given. Listen, God gave you your voice, not a softer version of a voice or a more palatable version of one, not the version that makes everyone in the room comfortable. Your actual voice, the one with direct truth and the conviction that comes from 20 plus years of experience in rooms that try to make you even smaller. And if you stay silent, if you keep shrinking, if you keep whispering when God told you to speak, you're being disobedient. You are withholding from the women who need the exact thing that God specifically equipped you to give to them. So staying silent causes you to forsake your assignment. You know what I wish someone had handed me when I was monitoring my tone with those ministry leaders? A clear picture of exactly who I was built to serve and why. Because the shrinking gets louder when you are unclear about your assignment. Clarity is what gives you permission to be specific. And specific is the opposite of playing small, sis. So if you don't have that clarity yet, go take my free quiz. What type of faith-based coach are you secretly meant to be? It takes about 3 minutes to find out your coaching personality. Make sure to put the link below. It will show you exactly where your gifts are pointing, and it will also give you the first piece of evidence that your brain needs that you are exactly where God called you to be, and you're exactly who God says you are. So what do you actually do this week to start unlearning 20 plus years of shrinking? The first thing you should do is just audit your last 10 pieces of content. Pull them up right now if you want and read through them and ask yourself one question. Does this even sound like me? Look for the word just. Look for I think instead of I know. Look at your messaging and see if it is clear who should be reading that particular message. That audit is going to show you exactly where the shrinking has been, and you can fix it immediately. Second, identify one place in your business where you've been accommodating instead of leading. So one place where you set the term smaller than it should be. One place where you undercharged and underdelivered on the promise of your own expertise because somewhere you learned that claiming your full value makes people uncomfortable. Name that, write it down, and decide today, right now, that you are changing that. The third thing is, and this is the most important, use your voice this week in a way that feels like a stretch, not a comfortable post or a safe caption, something specific, something direct, something that sounds like you. Reach out to one client directly also. Record one video, a video that where you say something that you've been too scared to say. Write the post that takes a real position instead of you saying staying safely in the middle. Your voice is your assignment. And the women who need what you carry can't find you when you're whispering. The research tells us that employees with sponsors are promoted at nearly twice the rate of those without. In your coaching business, you don't need a corporate sponsor. You need to sponsor yourself. You need to be the one who advocates for your own expertise, your own value, your own voice in every piece of content, every offer, every outreach, every conversation. Nobody is going to put a tiara on your head in this business either. You have to put your own tiara on. Here's what I need you to walk away with today. You didn't shrink because you were weak. You shrank because you were smart enough to survive a system that was designed to keep you small. And that survival instinct served you. It kept you employed. It kept you safe. It kept you in the room long enough to collect the expertise that is now the foundation of everything you're building. But you are not in that corporate room anymore. And the rules of that room don't apply here. You're building something of your own, something that God specifically equipped you to build with the voice He specifically gave you. And every time you soften it, every time you whisper it, every time you shrink it down to a size that feels safe, you're not protecting yourself. And the women you're assigned to can't find you. The McKinsey data confirms what your body already knew. The system wasn't built for you. 60 Black women promoted for every 100 men. 11 consecutive years of a broken rung. Decades of being told, don't get upset when you're just talking, and you should smile more when you're just working, and you sound upset when you were just doing nothing except existing fully in a room that wanted to keep you small. You survived all of that. You left and you're building something better. Now, stop shrinking inside of it. Your voice is your assignment. God gave it to you on purpose, for the women who are waiting for someone who sounds exactly like you to finally say the thing out loud. So say it. The women who need you are not looking for a softer version of what you know. They are looking for you, the real you. The one with receipts and the lived experience and the voice that corporate spent 20 years trying to quiet. My mini course, the Christian Women's Blueprint to Your First Coaching Clients, will show you exactly how to package all of that into an offer, price it with confidence, and get in front of the right women. The women who need you are not looking for a softer version of what you know. They are looking for you, the real you, the one with the receipts and the lived experience and the voice that corporate spent 20 years trying to quiet. My mini course, The Christian Woman's Blueprint to Your First Coaching Clients, will show you exactly how to package all of that into an offer, price it with confidence, and then get in front of the right women. I'll make sure to put a link of that below if you're watching on YouTube. And I'll also make sure to include that in the show notes if you're listening to this on the Launch Your Coaching Ministry podcast. And listen, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, sis. Okay, make sure you do that while you're down there, because every single week we show up here and have the kind of conversation that corporate never let us have. And I will see you in the next one. All right, beautiful. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you're sitting there thinking, okay, All right, I am so ready to stop talking about this and actually do something about it. Then here's what I need you to do right now. Head on over to businesschurchlife.com. That's businesschurchlife, all one word.com. And that's where you'll find everything you'll need to turn that corporate experience into the coaching ministry that you've been called to build. Now, whether you're just getting started or you're ready to dive deep, I've got resources waiting for you that'll help you stop spinning your wheels and start making some real progress. And hey, if this episode hit you right in the feels, do me a favor, leave me a quick rating and a review, then share it with another woman who needs to hear this message. Those reviews help more women find us, and we're building a movement here that starts with women just like you who are brave enough to bet on themselves. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, stop making excuses and start making moves.